Raised in St. Jude's Orphanage, I clawed my way up and built my own empire. That morning I was making my usual rounds of the construction zone when the Sterling's Riverdale's gilded dynasty suddenly decided to claim me. Mom, Dad, Big Bay sized me up in my high-vis work gear, decided I was just another laborer, and sneered that I was dragging the family name through the dust. They had no idea that with one flick of my finger I could crater the entire Sterling throne they perched on. "One Walter, how's it looking?" On the site asked the boss-like man beside him, voice jittery. The man called Walter swept his gaze across the steel skeleton, didn't answer right away, and casually glanced at me exactly because I'm the real power behind Vance, Riley. I keep a low profile, the press never gets a clear shot of me. Today counted as an incognito tour, Walter's supposed aide, a nobody site didn't even register. I gave a microscopic nod, only then did Walter exhale, laugh, and clap Site's shoulder. "Good work. I like what I see." The weight that had squatted on Site's chest for days finally hopped off, and his grin almost reached his ears. "Hey, as long as you're happy." Walter nodded again, turned, and headed for the exit with me in tow. Before we could reach the pickup, a Rolls-Royce muscled straight onto the rebar-strewn gravel. My brows snapped together. Walter caught the look and barked at Site, "Explain that." Site's newly light heart slammed back into his ribs. He squinted at the plates, then spread his hands, no clue. Mercifully, the rear door opened before his panic could bloom. A man who looked every inch the house stepped out, marched up, and looked me over like I was a rental he'd already decided to reject. Most people would have missed the curl of disdain in his eyes. "I've read tougher rooms for breakfast." I stayed silent, curious what manners-free performance he'd deliver. Walter opened his mouth, I lifted one finger and he swallowed the words. After another leisurely inspection, House dipped his chin. "Young master, you're the Sterling son we misplaced. Master Richard and Madame Victoria sent me to take you home." I blinked, genuinely wrong-footed. My earliest memory is St. Jude's. I'd solo climbed from there to the stratosphere, solo being the operative word. Still, the wanting never quite dies. Some half-buried kid in me had pictured a moment like this. "So yeah," my pulse spiked. "You're serious?" When I didn't move, House grew brittle. "Of course it's real. The Sterling family doesn't hand out invitations like bus tickets." His tone dumped a bucket of ice water on whatever warmth had started unfurling. If a hired house felt entitled to sneer, Birth themselves couldn't be overflowing with joy they hadn't even shown up. My expression cooled. Walter stepped in. "Last I checked, your staff. If that's how you talk to their son, Sterling standards are thinner than I thought." House bristled. "And you are?" "Sterling business isn't yours, alley cat." Without waiting he swung back to me. "Young master, Richard and Victoria are waiting. Let's go." Walter's temper flared. I touched his sleeve and shook my head. He frowned. I answered with a calm look that said, "Let's see how high this ivory tower really is." The Rolls stopped in front of the Sterling Manor. House ushered me out. "Young master, we've arrived Sterling Estates." Pride glittered in his eyes, the unspoken taunt, "Gawk while you can, peasant." I almost laughed. He's the doorman, yet he's preening like the deed is in his name. Compared to my penthouse overlooking the harbor, this pile is quaint. I let him keep his fantasy and followed without comment. My silence inflated him further. He decided I was too awestruck to speak. Inside the foyer a lazy voice floated toward us. "House, did you fetch him?" House's spine folded in half. "Yes, Madame Victoria. The young master is here." A dismissive hum answered. House retreated instantly. Then a baritone cracked, "He's back, so get in here." "Where are your manners?" I lifted a brow. "Your long-lost kid finally walks through the door and you open with a scolding? Charming parenting." I ambled forward until I spotted Richard and Victoria. Neither rose, neither smiled. Disgust flashed across their faces the instant they registered my high-vis vest and dusty boots. Richard barked, You came dressed like that? You're disgracing the Sterlings." I glanced down at my work clothes, genuinely puzzled. What's wrong with them? He sputtered, unprepared for pushback. Victoria patted his back while she lectured. Even if you weren't raised here, you should know better than to sink so low. If this gets out, we'll be a laughingstock. Housekeeper will take you to change, present yourself properly. I shrugged and followed housekeeper out. Before I cleared the archway, the front door slammed open again, and a mocking tenor rang through the hall. Mom, I heard kid was scooped off a scaffold. Hilarious. Where's the sideshow? We collided in the doorway. He froze, then burst into shrill laughter. Holy crap, look at this loser. Mom, you sure DNA didn't mix up the vials? He screams. Bargain bin. Victoria glided out, her face flipping from ice to honey the second she faced him. She caught his coat, cooing, "Stop that. This is your little brother, Adrian. Accept it." The guy scoffed. Victoria slid the mask back on and flicked a glance at me. That's your big, Chase. Say hello. I smiled but kept my mouth shut. Chase's curiosity overrode his scorn. He offered a hand. Hey, little bro. I'm the sterling heir, just so we're clear. He lingered on the word heir, flashing teeth. I lifted one brow. Noted, big. Chase wanted groveling. My shrug robbed him of the rush. Irritation narrowed his eyes. He stepped closer, hand hovering above my shoulder. Kid, you're filthy. Couldn't bother showering for mom and dad? TSK, tell you what, Big's closet is stuffed with hand-me-downs. Go pick something that won't embarrass us, then come back when you look like you belong. It was a naked humiliation, but I had weathered too many storms to let a cheap stunt rattle me. Still, indifference didn't mean I wouldn't play along. I furrowed my brow and turned to Chase, feigning confusion. Didn't House say the Sterlings were Riverdale royalty? How come nobody bothered to lay out clothes for me? Am I really supposed to wear Big's hand-me-downs? Chase froze, clearly unprepared for the gutter rat to talk back. His face darkened. Don't be ungrateful. Letting you wear my clothes is an honor. Pieces like these were probably beyond your wildest dreams. I ignored him and swiveled to Victoria. Mom, you told me I'm a sterling heir. If outsiders hear I'm wearing cast-offs, what will that do to the family name? Victoria's expression soured. In Riverdale, face is everything. Yet she wasn't about to side against the son she'd coddled since birth. Watch your tone when you speak to Big. No manners at all. Think the Sterlings can't afford you? Typical small-town ignorance. She flicked her wrist at the housekeeper. Take him to change before the whole family's reputation walks out the door in those rags. The housekeeper hustled me toward the stairs. I glanced back once. Chase wore the smug grin of a playground bully. See? You can be right and still lose. Mom's on my side. I shrugged. Laugh while you can, brother. Soon those designer labels won't touch your body. I changed quickly and returned to the hall properly dressed for once. Richard and Victoria actually nodded, a flicker of approval. Now you look like a sterling, Richard muttered. Chase sniffed. Big deal. Swap the clothes and he's still the same clueless hick. The words were ugly, yet neither parent rebuked him. They obviously agreed I was culture-proof. Richard's fleeting satisfaction vanished. He glared as if my nose were crooked and my eyes misaligned. Your Big is right. Learn from him if you don't want to disgrace us. For a second I considered slapping my Ivy leather diploma across his cheek, but I swallowed the urge. Let them strut. The higher the climb, the louder the fall. Victoria waved dismissively and steered Chase away. Enough. Chinner's been home for ages, he must be starving. Let's eat. Chase clutched his stomach. Yeah, I'm famished. We waited forever while someone fondled every stitch of clothing like a yokel at a sample sale. I just smiled. The family reached the dining room when the doorbell rang. Chase smacked his forehead. Almost forgot Blair's here. Sure enough, house escorted in a stunning woman. Impeccably polite, she greeted Richard and Victoria first, then looked at me uncertainly. And this is? Chase flicked 2 fingers. The stray kid I told you about finally sniffed his way home. A flash of disdain crossed her eyes. Old money kids wear contempt like a second skin. She masked it quickly and offered me a courteous smile. Lunch passed without incident, thank God for the archaic no talking with food rule, or Chase would have loosed more barbs. Even zero-calorie insults get noisy. After dessert, Chase announced he would take his fiancée to the afternoon Riverdale and slap the paddle on the final lot as her engagement gift. For reasons known only to him, he insisted on dragging me along. Kid should come big, we'll show him how the big boys play. I accepted cheerfully. Your funeral, brother. The auction began. Early lots bored him. He tossed in a few courtesy bids while saving firepower for the crown jewel at the end. Then Blair spotted an opening act item she fancied. Chase thumped his chest. Romeo in a $2,000 blazer. Anything you desire, I'll lay at your feet. She cuddled into his shoulder. Chase squeezed her, shot me a look that said watch and learn, and raised his paddle. Certain the trinket would stay cheap, he opened modestly. He hadn't counted on a shadow bidder who answered every uplift, always the minimum increment, always one heartbeat behind him. The price soon dwarfed the piece's worth, but pride kept Chase climbing. Blair sensed the trap and whispered, chin big, actually, I'm not that into it. Chase forced a grin. Relax, pocket change. Today it's yours. He vaulted the bid by $1 million, assuming the pest would fold. Silence hung for a second, then the rival countered with $2 million. Chase's face went volcanic. He finally realized someone was skinning him alive. Blair tried again. Let's wait for the Hanover crown you promised. That was her gift-wrapped exit, and he almost took it until I piped up. What's wrong, big? I thought money was our family cardio. My tone left fingerprints. Broke your word, huh? Empty wallet, empty promise. In front of his fiancée, the taunt detonated what remained of his common sense. Paddle up, 5 million bang. Gasps rippled through the tent, tongues wagged about the legendary fool buying sparkle at diamond mine prices. I figured the lesson had sunk deep enough and texted my proxy to stand down. Gavel down, Chase owns a trinket worth 1/10 what he paid. Even Blair stares as if he's sprouting antlers, but he's too busy crowing to notice. Laugh all you want, kid, these millions are lint in my pocket. I applauded softly. Amazing, big. Mom will be so proud when she hears. The taunt finally registered. Chase scanned the room, met a sea of smirks, and the truth walloped him. You set me up. I raised both hands. Wouldn't dream of it. You're the heir, I am just the kid who carries your coat. He missed the sarcasm entirely, chest puffed. Exactly. Mom's favorite, remember? I let the fool float away on his delusion and turned back to the stage. At last the Hanover crown paraded out, the showstopper once worn by a foreign princess, its diamonds breathing icy fire. A forest of paddles rose. Chase lounged, waiting for the herd to thin before he pounced. But he didn't know there's always someone higher, always another sky beyond the one you see. He'd braced himself, yet the sight of a single tiara rocketing to 3 million still knocked the wind out of him. He could pay it, he'd already claimed one lot, but the cushion was gone. Blair's eyes never left his face, bright with expectation, so he clenched his jaw and kept raising his paddle. Seconds later the bid hit 5 million. Chase's cash was drying up, his complexion had gone past charcoal to outright black hole. Blair saw it too. This was the engagement gift he'd promised her, and this time she refused to toss him a lifeline. I leaned in, oh so helpful. Keep going, big. Didn't you swear you'd win it for your future wife? Thanks to his need to show off, he'd seated me right beside him, so I had a front row view of the snarl ripping across his mouth. He ground his teeth, whispered to an aide, and the auctioneer soon asked the room whether bidding could pause while Sterling arranged a wire transfer. The crowd politely agreed. Chase bolted for the hallway and rang home. Richard and Victoria first declared the price insane, yet the family name was now on public life support. They wired him a fresh fortune. He swaggered back in, chest out, paddle high. As if the universe owed him a favor. When the hammer hovered at 8 million, Sterling had no free cash left. Under every glittering stare, after burning the family's reputation as fuel, Chase still lost. The cherry on top, the anonymous buyer never bothered to collect the Hanover tiara. It was donated straight to the Riverdale, an engraved invitation for the city to walk its dirty soles across the Sterling's face. Chase could seethe all he wanted, the gavel had stripped him bare, inside and out. I smiled, slow and satisfied. Who calls the Sterlings rich? 8 million and they're tapped. My Vance coffers could cover that before breakfast. Chase's auction clown car made Sterling the punchline of every dinner toast. Riverdale chatter cast him as a pants-down horn dog, his parents as failed breeders of liability. Even Blair took shrapnel word was she moonlighted as a gold-digging fox. Her parents now held for the engagement to be shredded. Yet Richard and Victoria didn't scold Chase, they blamed me for not stopping him. Pointless. The brain-dead air tag was already tattooed on his forehead. Chase, bruised and desperate to shove the joke back on me, invented a new fiasco. Citing concern for my little brother, he parked me in a hollow vice president title and dumped a nightmare project on my desk. Kid, this is practically wrapped up, he cooed. Consider it a gift from Big. Translation, he couldn't close it, needed a fall guy, and planned to pin the corpse on me when it finally croaked, ending any future claim to his throne. He still thought I was just a day laborer in high vis. He had no idea the signature on my real business card read Riley. The nightmare was nursery work. Sure enough, the file that had rotted on his desk for months was signed, sealed, and delivered in my first 2 weeks. The contrast spotlit his incompetence in neon. At the quarterly shareholder meeting I took a seat in the back. Richard chaired the circus and rewrote history without blinking. Adrian, you should be thanking your Big. If he hadn't mentored you step by step, you'd never have pulled this off. A daylight robbery, but the room was full of crocodiles who knew Chase hadn't built a damn thing in years. Chase himself missed the irony. Yeah, kid, show some gratitude. I lounged in my chair, half bored. You're right, I really should learn from Big. How about he presents the project himself? I'll take notes. Chase's face went funeral black, the shareholders' gazes sharpened to scalpels. He'd never bothered to read the file, how could he walk them through the slides? Richard hated watching his golden boy drown, yet blood was blood. Adrian, don't be childish. The project's yours, you present it. Your Big did you a favor. Chase nodded fast. Exactly. I basically gift-wrapped it for you. Be grateful. I lifted an eyebrow and let the silence cook. Every mind in the room was doing the same math. If the foundling could already outperform the prince, maybe a swap was overdue. Richard read the numbers too, and tossed new bait. Since you're hungry to prove yourself, here's the next course, negotiate the partnership with Vance. All yours. Gasps circled the table. Vance had exploded onto the scene too recently for Sterling to reach its ankles. The old guard smelled suicide. I smiled. Sure. I'll take it. From the board floor to the mailroom, people looked at me like I'd volunteered to juggle dynamite. They waited for the crash. Instead, Vance headquarters called the next morning. Riley would receive Adrian at noon to discuss the acquisition contract. Jaws hit linoleum. Chase spun in circles. Since the auction, the board had been measuring him for a noose. If I inked this deal, his heir apparent seat would eject him mid-flight. Dad, you have to fix this. Inside Richard's corner office, Chase clutched his father's sleeve. Richard's pride was caught in the same vice. Letting the opportunity slip was unthinkable, yet watching the construction rat outshine his cultured son would announce to Riverdale that all his grooming had been worthless. They spent the entire morning hashing out non-existent strategies. As the clock ticked toward my departure, they still had nothing until Chase dropped the final turd. Then we kidnap Adrian. I'll sign in his place. As long as the signature reads Chase, he can't overturn it. Even more obscene, Richard actually weighed the merits. I chuckled outside the door, then knocked. The sound cracked like a gun, father and son jerked as if caught trespassing. At Richard's gruff "come in," I stepped inside. Chase barked, "What do you want?" Ignoring him, I rushed to Richard. "Dad, emergency. I can't make the Vance meeting this afternoon." Chase's pupils turned to floodlights. He grabbed my shoulders. "For real?" I sidestepped, peeling his fingers off. "Of course it's real. Why, you volunteering to go in my place?" Richard nodded, solemn as a pope. "Obviously. If you're tied up, your big will handle it." "So? I'm doing you a favor by showing up. If you went and offended Vance, we'd all suffer." I shot him a strange look. "But you haven't followed this project at all. Can you actually handle it?" Chase's temper flared the moment his competence was questioned. "Excuse me? I'm the sterling heir. Compared to you, I'm dash." Seeing he'd taken the bait, I cut the quarrel short and turned to Richard. "Dad, in that case, whose name does the project stay under?" Richard's expression chilled, he pretended impartiality. "Naturally it stays yours. Carry on, don't worry." Only then did I leave, satisfied. Inside the office, Chase spat at my retreating back. "Who the hell does that guttersnipe think he is, fighting me for credit?" Richard chuckled, sipped his tea, voice dripping certainty. "Raised outside the manor, no polish at all. He actually believed me. Perfect. Chase, go sign the acquisition contract. By the time you're back, the whole company will think you closed the deal. He'll be powerless to change it." Had I overheard, I'd have thanked them for their teamwork. Coincidentally, I'd already planted rumors that Chase would be the one signing. When the cooperation imploded, or worse, when Vance was offended, the blame would stick to him like glue. 8 in the Vance lobby, Chase had sat for 4 straight hours and downed countless cups of water. As dusk gathered, he lost patience, grabbing the executive assistant who kept refilling his glass. "I was told to sign a contract. I've waited all day. Where's Vance?" The aide's smile was flawless, her words maddening. "Vance was called away unexpectedly. Please continue to wait." Never in his coddled life had Chase swallowed such insult. He sprang up and hurled the teacup to the marble floor. "This is how Vance treats partners? You call this trustworthy?" The assistant's smile never wavered, but her eyes iced over. No one made scenes in Vance's house. "Sir, patience, otherwise our partnership may end before it begins." Nearby employees joined the chorus. "Unbelievable, someone throwing a tantrum here? Everyone begs Vance for meetings, and this clown shows up yelling. Zero patience. Doesn't deserve our time. Acting all high and mighty. Wrong building, buddy." The comments poured over Chase like ice water. He loathed being lectured by people he considered beneath him, but panic threaded through the anger. The staff already credited me with sewing the deal up. If he broke it now, he was finished. He'd come to steal glory, not dig his own grave. Fuming, he sat back down. Too bad for him, the math wouldn't work. From the mezzanine I watched the circus, lips curling. Even the golden sterling heir could swallow humiliation when cornered. I beckoned my aide. "In an hour, bring him up." 60 minutes later, Chase knocked. "Vance, good evening. Sterling sent me to finalize the contract." I remained in my high-backed chair, facing the window. "Sounds like a different voice. The previous negotiator wasn't you." Chase hesitated, then laughed hastily. "The first guy was just staff. A signature this important demanded me, of course." A soft chuckle escaped me. "Is that so? Then you surely understand every clause. Brief me." I spun the chair. I caught the bead of sweat sliding down his temple. Head bowed, he offered only silence. I rapped the desk. "Well? Is this Sterling's idea of good faith?" Chase jerked upward, desperate to explain, and the world flipped. "Adrian? Adrian, why are you in that chair?" 9 amusement glittered in my eyes. Surprised? Reflexive scorn took over. So your emergency was sneaking here to play president? Get down before you sink the deal. I laughed low, gaze fixed on his bluster. Pity. That contract was doomed from the first line. He looked poleaxed. Quit lying. Apologize before the real Vance shows up. Tired of the act, I pressed the intercom. Moments later the same executive assistant entered, ignoring Chase. Vance, your instructions? Chase's jaw slackened, the pretense crumbled. I studied his bulging eyes, then told her, bring the file. When she placed the folder in my hands, Chase finally found words and they shocked even me. So what if you're Vance? Your birth son. Sooner or later it all flows back to Sterling. Sign it now and I'll put in a good word with Mom. My eyelid twitched. Used to think you were merely dumb. Turns out you're a daydreamer too pitiful. He waited for surrender, smug, then blinked. What did you say? I stepped closer. I said, seek therapy for those fantasies. Seeing open mockery, Chase exploded. Hand it over. And add 20% for the insult. I gave an inscrutable smile and extended the folder. You begged, how can I refuse? Certain I'd caved, he crowed, head high, flipping the cover. Good kid. Since you apologized, Big won't hold a grudge. A strangled yelp cut him off. Adrian. A takeover of Sterling? You dare. His eyes blazed crimson. Calm, I returned to the sofa, sipped tea. Problem? I'm willing to rescue Sterling, you should be grateful. With a roar he lunged, I planted a foot and sent him sprawling. He gaped from the carpet. That's Mom's empire. You can't. I loomed over him, contempt sharp. Can't? Crushing Sterling is a flick of the wrist, nothing simpler. He shook his head like a broken toy. No, impossible. I smiled. Can't? You still won't sign? Then letting Sterling go bankrupt really wouldn't be difficult. The moment Chase heard that, his whole body froze and cold sweat broke across his back. Bankruptcy? If the Sterlings actually collapsed, what would happen to him? Chase scrambled up and hugged my leg for dear life, begging in the humblest voice he could muster. Adrian, I'm your real big, you can't be this heartless. I gave him a lazy kick and pronounced, magnanimous, fine. Seeing you grovel like this, I'll give you one chance. 10 Soon I took Chase back to the Sterling matter. The instant Victoria saw him walk in, she hurried over, fussing, Vance really is something. How can signing a contract take so long? You must be starving, darling. She brushed right past me as if I didn't exist. I didn't care, I just shrugged and followed. Richard was skimming the newspaper. When he spotted Chase he asked, well? Everything signed? Chase nodded. I chuckled aloud. Exactly. My heart felt thanks to Big for finishing the last negotiation for me. Richard's face iced over. Nonsense. Your Big closed every clause. What could that possibly have to do with you? I faked a wounded look. Dad, you promised this project counted as mine. I've worked so hard. Richard's brows shot up, fury crackling. You only got into the company because your Big pleaded on your behalf, and now you're fighting him for credit? Ungrateful brat. Victoria piled on. We give you good food, a roof, everything. What else could you possibly want, you short-sighted leech? I listened as though it were white noise, smiling sweetly at Chase. Big, do you see it the same way? Probably emboldened by Richard and Victoria, Chase stuck his chest out again. Dad. Mom. Don't fall for him, he's CEO Sterling himself. All that contract talk was just a trick, he even threatened to buy out Sterling. I gave a soft laugh. Chase, I offered you a ladder, you chose the gallows. Richard and Victoria's eyes bulged. Chase, darling, is that true? Chase nodded. Richard exhaled, relieved. Perfect. Since you're Sterling, the old contract means nothing. We can still do plenty of business together. My lip twitched. So shamelessness really is hereditary. Since Sterling misheard, I don't mind repeating myself. Please listen carefully. I, Riley, plan to acquire Sterling. Richard's smile stiffened. What did you say? You're going to buy us out? I held his stare and nodded once, slow and deliberate. You dash. I'm your father. Attacking your own father's company monstrous. Victoria's voice cracked into a sob. You were part of my body, no gratitude at all, and now you want to swallow Sterling? I'll beat you to death for this disgrace. I wasn't stupid enough to stand still, I sidestepped. Victoria missed, nearly face-planting, but Chase caught her. She wailed, unfilial beast. I'll call every newspaper, let the whole city know the Vance CEO disrespects his birth, and see how you survive in Riverdale. Chase fought back a smirk as he offered fake pity. Kid, you'd better hand Vance over while you still can, or you'll never show your face again. I flicked an imaginary speck from my ear and looked at the three of them. Parents? You dare use that word? You never raised me a single day, mocked me at every turn, and now you think some paper-thin blood tie can threaten me? You really believe you qualify? Before Richard and Victoria could retort, I pulled a stack of documents from my briefcase and tossed them at their feet. Here's the acquisition contract. I advise you to sign willingly. Richard ground one heel onto the papers. Over my dead body. I'm your father, boy. Don't think decades in this town left me toothless. For old time's sake, don't force a fish-dead net break. I applauded without emotion. Beautiful speech, Sterling. But tell me, do you honestly believe a man who built Vance from zero can't match whatever tricks you keep in your drawer? I held his gaze until a shiver ran through him. He'd just remembered, I directed a fortress with my bare hands, how could he hope to compete? Yet pride forbade him to bow, he could only repeat, I'm your father, you can't touch me. So you refuse? Very well, I offered, and you tossed it away. Richard's expression shifted. What are you implying? Before the sentence settled, his phone rang. He tried to ignore it, but the buzzing refused to die. He answered, irritation lining every word. A frantic male voice burst through before Richard could speak. Chairman Sterling, the bottom fell out, we're filing bankruptcy. The handset slipped from Richard's fingers and cracked against the marble, the voice kept shouting. Chairman, say something. Sir, the board says young Sterling offended CEO Sterling and triggered the crisis, they're demanding answers. Chairman, please, what do we do? Richard stared at me, face the color of wet ash. What do you want? I ignored him, picked up the phone, and spoke to the panicking executive. Relax. Chairman Sterling will give you an explanation, only I'm afraid Chase won't be available for comment. I ended the call. A leaden hush filled the room until a trembling female voice asked, What do you mean we won't see Chase? What are you going to do to him? Finally, terror registered in Richard and Victoria's eyes. Spare Chase, ask for anything, we'll give it. I laughed softly. What makes you think the thing I want is something you can provide? Seeing no mercy, Chase threw himself to the floor, crawling on his knees to clutch my leg. Adrian, kid, big knows he was wrong, please, let me off this once, please. I looked at the tears streaking his face and felt nothing. 2 fingers lifted his chin. Let you off? When you murdered those girls, did you grant them the same mercy? 11 Chase's eyes widened in horror, his legs gave out completely. You're talking nonsense. What girls? I don't know anything. Really? I curved my lips, turning to Richard and Victoria. Mr. and Sterling, surely you're aware your beloved son raped and killed. Oh, right, you helped him cover it up. Their faces drained of color, but years of burying secrets let them bluster, lies. We know nothing. I folded my arms and sighed. Fine, play dumb. The detectives are in the loop anyway, they should be pulling up the drive about now. Chase lurched forward and clutched my pants. Kid, big begs you call them off, I swear I'll change, please. I flung his hand away in disgust. Begging? Too late. Sure enough, the shrill wail of sirens pierced the manicured silence of the manor. No one expected the glittering Sterling dynasty to implode overnight. Richard and Victoria, exposed for bribery, embezzlement, and a litany of crimes, were soon measured for orange jumpsuits. But the true bombshell was the heir himself, Chase Golden Boy turned predator. The headlines blared that the darling of Riverdale's galas was a rapist and a murderer. Overnight he became vermin to be stomped on. As I said, monsters like him have no business in designer labels. Prison garb suits him far better. I gazed up at the seized Sterling Tower and let out a long breath. In the beginning I meant only to teach them a lesson. The deeper I dug, the uglier the rot. Some graves, it seems, dig themselves.